my spiritual consciousness, I come from a tradition of the Yoruba traditions of the Orishas, okay? And we believe in the ancestors. We believe that in calling their names, you bring them into the presence. So, while in the documentary, I don't speak their names, you see their names scrolling, all these names, and, we as an audience, viewers sitting, recognizing the names, and you recognize these are the names of black men and women who were lost to police brutality.
For Vibe 105, I'm Fatima Hussein at the Caribbean Tales International Film Festival. And in focus today is the film My Execution Will Be Televised, a short documentary film examining the historical resonance of the Black Lives Matter movement. And joining me today is the director, Roma Spencer. The Toronto-based filmmaker is also a York University alumni. Welcome to Vibe 105, Roma.
Hello, Fatima. Thank you so much for having me.
How do you feel about the Canadian premiere of your film at the festival?
I am still trying to come to terms with it because, truth be told, I didn't expect to be in the festival. It was my first major work as a filmmaker, right? And I couldn't think that my very first thing, submitted to a film festival, that it was good enough to be selected. So I was quite surprised to get the call that I was selected, and now here I am today at the Canadian premiere of the film. So for a moment I am still trying to pinch myself to see if it's for real, but
right.
It is indeed for real. We're here, right? So yeah, so it's kind of surreal, but loving every moment of it.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
So this mini documentary is inspired by a placard from the Black Lives Matter March.
Yes.
How did the idea evolve?
Well, first of all, I want to backtrack a little bit because the entire inspiration, while it came from the placard, I think the title of the film came from the placard. So that was exactly what I saw on the placard. My execution will be televised. But the super inspiration, so to speak, came about when, sitting in my living room and seeing the public lynching of George Floyd and the subsequent amount of protest the world over. Black people, white people, yellow, brown people, people from as far as Japan, Iceland, taken to the streets in the height of a pandemic when we were told to separate, isolate, and quarantine. We were told this and we were all at home, and yet people took to the streets in spite of all of that to say enough is enough, Black Lives Matter. And that is when I saw, of course, that placard in Toronto, My Execution Will Be Televised. So first it was the shock of what it would take for someone to really take to the streets, at this time of the pandemic, to say Black Lives Matter. All these various allies. And I stopped to think. I'm like saying, do they really understand why, how, and when Black Lives Matter? And I was resolved to say, no, I don't think they do. It's kind of like, almost fashionable at the time. You follow your friends and you hit the streets, Black Lives Matter. People were indeed genuinely moved by the public lynching of George Floyd. But I don't think everybody really understands the historical resonance of when you say Black Lives Matter, what do you mean? And why does Black Lives Matter? What makes Black Lives Matter? And that is when I sat down and set out to write this documentary. And it was also based on a piece of physical theater presentation work that I had done outside my house during Pride. It was something that the Buddies in Bar Times Theatre had put out a call to celebrate pride in your place, pride in place, in your neighborhood, because we cannot take to the streets. And I did that with 2 dancers with a performance called Quarantine. It is what is called site-specific theatre. So you're performing an act of theatre in the environment. And I chose the Regent Park Muse. And in that where one of the dance artists, I had her have this placard that says, "My execution will be televised." So I use, excerpts from that to further tell and amplify the story.
Don't shoot, hands down! Don't shoot, hands down! Don't shoot, hands down! Don't shoot!
In the research phase, when you were assembling the narrative together, or during the production of the very film, do you recollect having a difficult conversation with yourself while reflecting on a lot of these sensitive topics?
Yeah, very good question, Fatima, because I come from Trinidad and Tobago, where I am the majority. All right, the only racism wasn't even part of our national narrative. The word race came up when we say, you racial. So those in Trinidad, we don't call them South Asian, we say Indian, right? So those Afro or Indo-Trinidadians, when they are prejudiced towards an Afro-Trinidadian, you say they're racial. That's the kind of racism that I would have known about, and it was further really perpetuated by our politicians. Because I grew up living next door to Indian people. All the food that I learned to cook and the words in Hindi that I know is all because of that harmonious living with my Indian neighbors. So you have to understand that when I came here, I didn't know how to recognize what is racism. So something may come my way, and I cannot recognize that it has been racist. I will kid you not that it is only during post George Floyd and the pandemic I really truly started to understand anti-racism, anti-systemic racism. Those buzzwords and phrases only came to my consciousness as recent as 3 years ago. Because as I said, I was living in a space that I couldn't identify when that prejudice was coming towards me. Yeah.
A very profound reply. So you've dedicated this film to personalities like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd and Freddie Gray, and so many more. Did you at any point while you were producing the film felt that there was an extra level of responsibility while you were, invoking or using or dedicating the film to their name?
I like the word invoking rather than dedicating, because I didn't quite dedicate it to them. Is that I was just amplifying the fact that, look at the lives lost through police brutality, Black lives, okay? I wanted to amplify that, and at the same time, in my spiritual consciousness, I come from a tradition of the Yoruba traditions of the Orishas, okay? And we believe in the ancestors. We believe that in calling their names, you bring them into the presence. So, while in the documentary, I don't speak their names, you see their names scrolling, all these names, and, we as an audience, viewers sitting, recognizing the names, and you recognize these are the names of Black men and women who were lost to police brutality. So that was my own little way of, as I said, amplifying it and speaking their names into existence.
What kind of work can we see next?
Right now, I'm the artist in residence at the Queer Trans and Research Lab at the Bonham Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at U of T. And there I am working on writing the musical on the her life and story of Calypso Rose.
Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today. But thank you once again, and congratulations on your premiere of the film.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. For more festival coverage, follow us on our socials at Vibe105TO or visit us at vibe105to.com.